is news and entertainment. This relentless.
Bitch on game.
Hey, bitch on game. Hey, relentless.
Welcome to the Cole and Dre Show. I'm Cole.
And this is Dre. What up, world?
Hey, so today we have Dr. Rez from, what are you, from Methodist Hospital?
Yeah, from Methodist Hospital.
Okay, from Methodist Hospital. We're going to talk a little bit about the doctor profession, talk about COVID, talk about the flu, talk about a few things. We're going to touch on a few.
Flu.
I mean, he well, off air, he said that kind of like the flu was up a little bit, so making a comeback.
Okay.
So, we'll speak on a few things. Actually, and I'll be honest with you guys today, Dre was unprepared, and so was I. So, Dr. Rez scheduled with us a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of forgot. And so we kind of on the fly, but hopefully we'll hit enough health subjects that it's informative to everybody. So to start with, Dr. Rez, first things first, what type of doctor are you exactly?
So I'm a private hospitalist at Houston Methodist at the Texas Medical Center. So a hospitalist is a term that I think a lot of people don't know, but it's kind of gained a lot of popularity, I would say, in the last decade. Okay. So a hospitalist is kind of a general term, but it can actually be in a variety of different specialties. So for example, I'm an internal medicine hospitalist, but there are also neuro hospitalists, OB-GYN hospitalists, and other different specialties. The reason they do that is that it's kind of like shift work. So the traditional model is 7 on, 7 off.
Right.
So
is that days, or you mean days? 7 days on, 7 days off?
Yeah. So they're usually shift 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
7 days straight, and then they're off. In the private world, I'm kind of 24/7. My patients are my patients.
Right.
And there's pros and cons to both in terms of things, but a hospitalist is essentially someone who works exclusively at the hospital. They don't have a clinic, so I don't have an office or a clinic. From a private sense, that's good, right? Okay. Especially in terms of your type of business and things like that, right? So I have no overhead.
Right. Oh, fair.
So that's one thing in terms of the business model of it. Okay. So even though I work at Methodist, I have privileges as a Methodist. I'm more like an independent contractor.
I was about to say definitely an independent contractor.
Yeah, I'm an independent contractor. Okay. And basically the group that I work for, we help each other out in terms of taking time off. So I as far as vacation, things like that, I can take off as much time as I want. Right. And typically can take off 3-4 months.
Sounds like a sweet job.
Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought.
Sounds pretty sweet.
Because off air we were talking and he was telling us how much he works, and so a couple of things you said interesting. But before we get to some of those things, let's talk about a little bit about COVID, because we had a discussion off air about the COVID-19, or what do they call it? I don't even know what's the proper term. I will say publicly I did get vaccinated. And I will shame my co-host because he did not. I guess it's not a shame to him because
he's trying to shame you on it.
No, that's what the media does. They try to shame you.
I'm like everybody else. I'm still doing research.
They try to shame. You're still doing research.
I'm still doing research.
So talk to us a little bit about the vaccine numbers. Are they up? Are they down? Are they stagnant? And do you think they're helping?
Yeah, so the other name for COVID-19 is SARS-2 COVID. So it's like a SARS variant virus. Okay. I think SARS is something that we've seen, in 2009. We've had other kind of these pandemics, but nothing like COVID-19. Right. So it essentially started in November, December of 2019 is where it's got its name. And then we started seeing in the United States around March of last year. So during that time, it started out, actually the first case was in Seattle, and then it kind of spread all throughout the country. And I think that, especially the areas that are more remote, things like that, people have kind of ignored it, in terms of things. I think that's one of the things in Texas is that people like their own choice to do whatever they want to do. The vaccine, we didn't have a vaccine last year. So last year, COVID was absolutely devastating from a hospital standpoint. At one point, we had 750 people in our hospital system who had COVID.
What is capacity?
So at my hospital, I think it's around 2,200. So we had, I think, 10 or 11 floors that were exclusively COVID patients. They were called the HIDU. It's like high infectious
Right.
disease unit or whatever, like highly infectious disease unit.
HIDU.
Yeah.
Highly infectious disease unit.
Yeah, so
HIDU.
only certain people could like go there, and they were like pretty strict about it actually, like because they wanted to like.
I don't think I want to go to the high unit. I don't think I want to go to that one.
Yeah, so but last year, here's the thing about COVID that I don't think most people realize is once you get it, especially if it's to a severe degree, there's a couple things that happen. One, it's incredibly like hard to treat. Like
Right.
so people, if they have, let's say, pneumonia or something else that sepsis, that's really bad and very severe. They're usually in the hospital for a week or two, and they get better. They go home. With COVID, we see people in the hospital for like literally months. So I had someone actually, unfortunately, 2 days ago, who was unvaccinated, pass away. He was in the hospital for 2 months.
And he was unvaccinated?
Okay. But most of the people, once they're in the
Sad story.
ICU, they have an extremely high chance of having really high chance of mortality. So the vaccine last year came out around like December. And so
Right.
as first responders, at my hospital, I think this is a big thing, it's in order to work there, you have to be vaccinated. It's like 100% vaccination. So
Right.
we kind of set the stage like on even a national level as a precedent to like have everyone who's working there be
Right.
vaccinated. I think there was even a lawsuit. It was kind of crazy. I don't know if you
Yeah, I saw
stuff.
that. I did see that on the news.
So
So quick
How do you
question
feel
for
about
you.
that? Like,
Yeah,
that
because I
was
was
my
going to
question.
ask
Like,
you, how do you feel about that?
it
Yeah.
being a mandate for the vaccine? Do you feel like it's well warranted? Do you feel like it should be everybody's personal choice? How do you feel about that?
So as a provider, right, like I definitely wanted to educate myself first about it more than anything else. So the thing with COVID vaccine, one thing that's extremely unique about it, it's a first MRI not MRI. It's like it's
Not an MRI vaccine.
No, it's
That was a blueprint.
No, it's a RNA vaccine.
Okay, RNA. Okay.
Yeah, RNA
What is
vaccine.
RNA? Because everything
So-
you guys say have
So
initials
right.
have some
RNA
form
stands
of
for like
HIDU,
yeah,
HIDU.
Ribo-
HIDU
highly
unit.
intensive
Carry-
disease unit, or
yeah.
something like that. Anyway,
He got it.
Go ahead.
Y'all, he got it.
And then, so it's like ribonucleic acid. So it uses like a very different form of like kind of technology in order to make the vaccine. That's why it was expedited.
Okay.
And they were able to do it. What's interesting is most traditional vaccines, what they do is they give you a small dose of the actual virus.
Right.
And they let your like immune system do the thing. This one actually, and why a lot of people initially were reluctant to it, is that it takes your own body like DNA and and essentially like creates the immune like response from that kind of secondary to that. So
Right.
you're not getting any of the actual COVID. You're actually getting like kind of a script for it, like kind of like I guess like this very like genetic engineering type of thing where it's very they're giving you the code to be able to produce the antibodies.
Okay.
So interestingly, that's actually safer than
It's like
traditional
uploading
vaccine.
a new app or something.
Yeah, it's
That's a good analogy.
I mean, like uploading a new app.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
yeah, that's actually a really good analogy. And I
Yeah.
mean, and it's safer actually to do that
Okay.
than to get like a traditional vaccine. So kind of learning about that whole process, like, and also to be an example, like at the hospital, like, if the doctors themselves are not doing it, like we're setting a bad example, right? So, I received the vaccine in December. My first dose, I received the Pfizer, and then the second dose in January. And most of the nurses kind of the same.
Did you feel any type of way after you got the vaccine?
So
Did
I
you-
was very fortunate. I didn't feel anything.
Okay.
And the thing is, I think, and this is a part that I think a lot of people become reluctant. Like I did have one case, and I think it was actually the first vaccine-related complication in the United States. Like I took care of this nurse from like MD Anderson.
Okay. That happened here?
This happened here. Yeah. This
Okay.
was like a heartbreaking story. Like 29-year-old, like this beautiful nurse who like was.
Right.
Like her whole life ahead of her, and then she got one of the very rare side effects, which is something called Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Guillain-Barré.
Yeah, where essentially the nerves stop working. Like, and they have an ascending paralysis, meaning that it starts. So she couldn't even walk.
Well,
Like,
I
couldn't
mean-
move her hands, couldn't eat, do anything like that.
How rare is that? I mean, is that the only case?
It's
that we know
incredibly
about, or-
rare. This was
Okay.
the first case.
But this is the only case.
It's not the only case. I think in America, out of like the millions that they've gotten, I think there's only handful. Like
Okay.
I don't know
It's
the
still
exact
extremely rare.
number,
Okay.
but it's less than 50.
Okay.
It's less than 50.
Damn.
So seeing
Less
that
than
was
50 out of like 70 billion. I
mean,
mean,
no.
70 million.
yeah.
Yeah.
So over time though, I mean, but like things like that obviously scare you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And I think you give one case, you know, people are like, oh look, we don't
Right,
know
right,
enough
right.
about it. We need to learn more about it. We have to
Right.
see. So thankfully, most of my colleagues, and myself, like we didn't have any issues or problems with the
Right.
vaccine. I would say half my group though, even with the vaccine, and I guess this is more so last year, half my group got COVID. Like they were
With the vaccine?
no. Well, I mean, this is like, well, with the vaccine, no one has gotten it within my group. But like last year, when we didn't have the vaccine, just being in the hospital taking care of these patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Being
you
around
guys
so
are
much.
exposed
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
you're directly exposed.
And so thankfully, I was one of the people that I didn't get it.
Right.
But, you know, I might have gotten it without knowing. That's the thing that's kind
Right.
of crazy about it. There's a
Right.
lot of like asymptomatic carriers.
And I think that's me. I think I if I had it, I mean, I clearly didn't get sick with it. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
you know, in the time I've been tested, like it was, you know, a negative test. So I don't really.
I had it, but I felt fine, even though I had
Okay.
it. I mean, you know, it was just, you know, it's already hard for me to sit down. So to stay at home and quarantine, that was very difficult. Like,
It wasn't for me though. I enjoyed my time at the crib.
but you say you didn't have it.
I'm just saying, but we all
Oh, you mean
quarantined because we
throughout
shut
the-
the year. I enjoyed that time at the crib. I
I
got a
don't
lot
think
done.
like in Texas, in the state of Texas.
Yeah, but we really
I
weren't
don't
no
consider
lockdown.
us. I don't think
Yeah,
we
no, I
really
don't
had
think
to
so either.
quarantine like the rest of the country did.
Well, our quarantine didn't look like the rest of the country's quarantine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we were out partying and everything else. The restaurants were pretty much open.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Grocery
everything.
stores was the club. No.
yeah.
Grocery stores was the club, yo. Like,
Walmart
it
is
was,
still that way.
Yeah, but HEB was live though. HEB live. Like, shout out to HEB.
So HEB is a grocery store here locally in Houston and all over Texas.
But
Okay, I just had to
but
throw it
during
in.
but during COVID.
Hey, you know what? I had to say that because I be watching people stuff and they be like
Yeah, what's
talking
HEB?
about something,
Yeah,
and
no
I be
one-
like,
no one knows HEB outside of
what is that?
Texas. Yeah.
So HEB not outside Texas?
No, I'm from Kentucky.
I don't think so.
Oh, you were in Kentucky? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm from Kentucky. I had no idea what HEB was or Central Market. Or like
Well,
those
now
places.
you know HEB is
Yeah.
everything you
Because
need.
there's like, you know, but we also don't know in Texas, like some of the stuff like in college,
Right, right,
like in North
absolutely.
Carolina, like Harris Teeter. That's like a
Yeah,
grocery
what is
store.
that?
Publix. There's like Acme.
I've seen Publix.
Kroger. I mean, Kroger's like
Yeah.
everywhere.
Kroger's is everywhere.
But, yeah, but yeah, I guess it's a Texas thing though.
Right.
It's a Texas thing, man.
Like Buc-ee's.
Yeah, Buc-ee's definitely Texas. You rode these Texas highways, you know about Buc-ee's.
Yeah, I love Buc-ee's.
I love Buc-ee's too.
But we got a doctor on today, so we've already said we're going to be extremely clean because we have Dr. Lewis, so we're gonna keep it clean. But Buc-ee's has very nice bathrooms. Their bathrooms are always
there's-
clean.
yeah,
I
Buc-ee's
thought
has
I'd throw
nice
that in.
bathrooms.
Oh, yeah, for
so
sure.
We'll be clean today. So, you said something. Well, before I get to that, let me ask this particular question.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the decline in COVID cases is due to the vaccine?
Oh, 100%.
100%.
100%. I can say that like very confidently, and I've seen it firsthand. So with the Delta variant, and that's the thing with COVID too. It's very complex. There's so many different variants. You know, I think we're at this point now. Like, there's like a Lambda variant, and there's like
my
this.
God.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy actually. And there's I think a separate one in Africa too that like they're expecting to come to the U.S.
So since the variants changes, does the vaccine change, or how does that work?
So that's the thing. So the vaccine's supposed to protect you against
Whatever.
all the different variants, and it does suppress it. So like the people who have gotten the vaccine, there's a marked difference in terms of when they come to the hospital, in terms of how sick they get.
Right.
So last year before the vaccine, like I mean, the mortality for COVID was ridiculous.
Right.
Now, like these people actually have a chance, and they're actually getting out of the hospital,
Okay.
and it's very noticeable. I mean, at our peak this year, interestingly, it was more than last year, even with the vaccine. But the thing is, it wasn't like the people weren't as sick. We were actually able to get people out.
Okay.
Last year, once they were sick, like, you know, I don't know if you realized last year there's like a shortage on like dialysis machines. And there's something called CRT, which is like a bedside dialysis.
Right.
There's like national shortages. There's national shortages on like, you know, ventilators and like, I mean, and it was, you know, and we're in the United States, like in India and like other parts of the world.
We're not
I
used
mean,
to that type of stuff.
there's like, no, I mean, it's crazy. There's like a black market for like oxygen. Like there's like all this crazy stuff happening.
Right.
Speaking of oxygen, do you get an oxygen shot? Have you ever got one?
Oxygen shot?
Oxygen shot.
Ain't nobody ever heard of that. He's a doctor. I ain't never
I
heard of
think
that.
that's what it's called. Like they
So we need
shoot
the official
oxygen
name.
in your blood.
we
I'm
need
telling you, I
we
had
need
it.
the official name because this is the second time
What
you
is
mentioned
it?
this oxygen
What is
shot.
it called?
I don't know.
So what you're referring to, it's not oxygen. I know what you're saying. So you're referring to something called erythropoietin. That's what like sometimes people do with
That
blood
definitely
doping.
don't sound nothing like oxygen shot.
Whoever heard of erythropoietin? What
Ain't
you
nobody
just
ever
say?
heard of
So
oxygen
it's
shot.
it's called an EPO shot, but what an EPO shot is.
Okay, that's
so
what it is.
so blood carries oxygen, right?
Right.
So essentially, you're kind of like whenever like. I don't know if you know long distance runners
Right.
to train for like a marathon or whatever.
Right.
They go up in the mountains and train.
Well, I was in Colorado Springs and they said that you get an extra pint of
Exactly.
blood from being there 6 months because of the oxygen.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
that's why, or like you notice like people they wear that mask
Right.
to deprive themselves of oxygen so that like essentially you can beef up on it.
Right.
And so when people are getting these shots, that's the thing. It's actually like in all these like Tour de France. I think
It's a
people
cheat
get in
code.
trouble.
It's really some cheating, so you
like,
cheating.
they get in
But
trouble. It's illegal.
You cheating.
I'm gonna get you one. It's
No,
on me.
you
I'ma
cheating.
get you
No,
one.
you cheating.
No, I'm not cheating. It
What
makes
you
you
training
feel
for?
better.
You just said you wanted to be in the 50 over league and go kill some people at the court. That's why you got oxygen shot.
Don't be telling people how old I am.
So my co-host over here boosting up on oxygen to go to the YMCA to crush the 50 and over league. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, son.
Well, okay, I'm guilty.
You can get oxygen like through a nasal cannula. That's kind of like become more of like a fad type of thing. Like we talked about a few weeks ago when you were going to Vegas. Like a lot of these major cities, like people are just getting because it makes you feel good.
Right.
It doesn't matter. But most people like when you check your saturation, like 80 above 88 is like
What did you call it? Exaggeration.
Oxygen saturation.
Right.
So you got too many codes to remember. I
he's
could
a
never be no
doctor.
doctor. Yeah, I mean, but he said everything he said that they've been
That's why they go to school for 13 years.
HIDU,
why they
CR,
go to school for so long.
CRT. This, I mean, like, hey, man. Okay, yeah, go ahead, man.
So what about the IV drips? I've been seeing a lot of people.
Yeah,
a lot
so
of those
that's the
things
thing.
popping up.
So
What
like,
about the IV drips?
there's
How
like
about that?
drip hydration, things
Yeah, I've seen
like that.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Do you
like,
recommend any of that stuff? Like,
So-
is it just good for the casual?
I mean, it's definitely good for a hangover and things like that.
Okay,
right?
but just for the casual person, like, you know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah,
know.
I mean, it's not bad. I mean, so the thing is, in general, like, I think most people, myself included, were like chronically dehydrated.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
like, so the body, like, to maintain like an equilibrium, you need like 2 to 3 liters of fluid. And that's like, about like
4 of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4 is like 1 liter, so you need
Right.
8 to 12.
Right.
How many people drink that? Not very
Absolutely
many.
not.
So the thing is, our bodies are amazing because we compensate for that. However, and that's why it makes you feel good because you're just essentially like
Getting
giving
things you're supposed to have.
Yeah, you're getting
Right.
things that you're supposed to have, and that they put in like electrolytes and things like that
Right.
to kind of make you feel better, like a banana
That's
bag.
on the IV drip. This thing I'm talking, I'm gonna have to find out. I'm gonna ask.
Well,
It's
we
an
don't
ingest-
get-
I know what you're talking about. It's erythropoietin. It's like
Yeah.
That makes you feel good for like 30 days, though.
yeah, it basically increases like the blood like I guess
Yeah.
concentration in
Yeah.
your body, and so you feel better. You can like you can do more like in terms of activity.
Right.
So which YMCA you signing up to?
So listen.
No,
we're not gonna
which
do
one?
that.
Which one?
Listen,
Because they need to see you coming.
listen,
you
here's the
hopped
thing.
up on oxygen
Because I almost
and trying to
said
go
something,
kill the
and
50 and over.
we've made it a point. We're gonna make this a good, clean show because we have the doctor on here. We got the doc on here.
So we
we're gonna
trying
be
to show out in
clean.
front of company.
So listen, no, hold up. No, I'm not gonna let you get me off task today. So listen, here's something else you said that was kind of shocking to me, and I know it was shocking to you. You said doctors have like one of the highest suicide rates of any professions.
Yeah, doctors and dentists. And we're
And
like-
dentists?
And dentists?
Yeah, dentists are actually they were actually more than doctors until like I think a couple years ago. Like they were always at the top of the list as far as
A
like
dentist.
Dentist?
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
baffling. That's very interesting. Like that's
I mean-
Why?
yeah. Why? What is? I seen too many cavities today.
They
Like,
smell too much bad breath. They just want to kill themselves. I mean,
it's not funny, bro. Like okay, this is a serious matter.
No.
It's not funny.
No,
no, that's something wrong.
A dentist though. That's
So
pretty,
as far as and I can speak from the medical profession.
Okay.
Like so as far as that, like, you become a doctor like
Right.
when you finish medical school. As far as being competent as a doctor, you're not very competent as a physician. And we talked about this, remember? Like
Yeah,
the
because they
highest-
always say practicing. So I asked him, like, at what point do you stop practicing and you become a professional?
So that's why
you go
you-
to school for 8 to 12 years and you still practicing. Like,
Yeah, so medical school you learn like kind of like the book knowledge of it, like the art of medicine in terms of like taking care of people, actually like being a doctor. Like that's when you go through residency. That's what you do over those 3 years.
So
And-
basically, when you open somebody up, you just practice.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No, so I was telling him like,
but that's what they. I mean, they always say this is my practice. So I asked him, at what point do you stop practicing and you become a professional? And it's like they're practicing for life, I guess, because the body's consistent. And who saw COVID coming?
Yeah.
So I guess those are things that make it a practice.
Remember I told you what's the worst time of year to go to the hospital? Remember we talked about this?
Yeah, you told me what, in November?
No, July.
No, yeah.
Why July?
So that's when all the new residents start. Like,
okay.
And it's proven. I mean, there's actually
every July?
The highest rate of like, because especially if you go to a teaching hospital, you're gonna have some sort of like basically someone who.
So did you just say
straight out of training?
Hold on.
Don't get sick in July.
Oh my goodness.
Man, this man just spilled a medical jewel. Do not get sick in July. They will kill you. But he didn't say that.
He didn't say that.
Oh
my
No, he didn't
goodness.
say that. Let me not say that. That's not what he said. I apologize. I'm not going to take his words
That's
out of
when
context.
training camp starts for rookies in July.
Essentially,
Right.
yeah.
That's when training camp starts.
Training camp for rookies in July.
Possibility you can, hey,
Right.
can y'all imagine me as the doctor in July coming in?
No.
You couldn't imagine me as a doctor at all. Huh?
Not at all. Not with this person. No.
But go back to suicide though. The reason I brought that
Yeah,
up,
let's go
Yeah,
back
let's
because
get back
I was getting out track. I was finna go
I was
somewhere.
gonna say, yeah. So getting back to that, so it's kind of like I was like comparing it to like kind of like a hazing in like a fraternity,
Right. You did
and
say
I think most people don't realize that. Like in terms of the training itself, like it doesn't matter what specialty you do, it's incredibly rigorous, and like they have these rules where they say 28 hours, a shift as like what you could do kind of max, like at a time nowadays. When my dad did training, it was like 36 hours. In reality though, like, whenever you're doing these shifts, you're there kind of at the disposal of your attending, who's like the upper level, your teacher, right? So most of the time, even though 28 hours is what we were supposed to do, in most training programs, to kind of get the job done, things like that, we worked like 30-hour shifts. So there'd be weeks when we were on like, floor month at the hospital, we worked like 120 hours at a time. And it's just, it's stressful when you have other people's lives at your hand.
Right,
so,
absolutely.
I can, so from a suicide standpoint, like some people, it's just too much for them to handle. Yeah. But on top of that, what's interesting, and this is kind of a negative culture within medicine, I think a lot of people don't realize, is that, doctors are the hardest amongst each other. So like when you have like a medical student or anyone like that, there's something called pimping. And I think a lot of people know this.
I just didn't expect
I
pimping to
didn't
come
expect
out
that
in the
word.
interview.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't expect pimping to come out. But go ahead, I got to listen to this.
The pimping stands for put in my place. So basically...
Put in my place or plays?
Place.
Oh,
like,
place, okay.
So essentially, like anyone who's had more training, obviously through that experience, you have more knowledge and you know more than, someone who's less training. So it's just like kind of like, the older people who've had more experience, they ask questions that are sometimes like ridiculous to like the, these med students, just to kind of, if they're like arrogant and like, want to kind of make sure they're like, put them down in their place, like they're humble.
So pimping is nationwide and all
Pimping is
around.
nationwide, yeah.
So because if they putting you in your place, they basically, he's over you. PIMP stand for put it in my pocket. So
Oh my God.
I mean that's the same thing because he putting it in his pocket because he higher than you. So he's checking
Shout
you.
out to all the doctors in there. It's not good.
Oh God! I just would have never expected pimping to come up in this interview. I wouldn't have never expected that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we're really hard amongst each other, and so I think that's where.
Well,
that,
I'm happy to hear that. Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
and I mean for good reason, right? So like
Absolutely.
and it's standardized in the United States. Like it doesn't matter, like med school rankings and things like that. Mm-hmm. I mean anywhere in the world, like I think it's important, except for the U.S. because it's so standardized and so rigorous just to get to the point where you can practice. So, for example, you have to take something called the USMLE, which is the U.S. Medical Licensing Exam, and there's like 3 parts. It's an 8-hour test that you take like in the middle of like medical school between the 2nd and 3rd year. You take another 8-hour test between like the 3rd year and the 4th year. You take another test that you can only do in 5 cities in the U.S. called the Clinical Skills Exam, which has kind of changed recently.
That's too much.
And then once you finish all of that and you're into a residency program, you have to take step 3, which is a 15-hour 2-day exam. So, and that's just the exam to like, be in residency. After that, you have to take a board. So, you have to take like another 8-hour test afterwards, like in internal medicine. Or if you do a specialty, you have to take those boards, which is like,
So you really have to enjoy what you do to put that kind of work in, or really be
Absolutely,
committed
yeah.
to the
So
craft.
that's why, to answer your question, like, is it worth it from a financial standpoint?
Yeah,
I think most
asked you
people.
that question. I asked him that question off air, and I asked you that question because I had a credit repair company, and I got an opportunity to take a look at a lot of credit reports, and I was saying that, I see some of these doctors who are $500 to $800, $900,000 in debt between doctors and dentists. And so I had to start breaking down the numbers, and I'm looking at what they're making, and I'm looking at the amount of debt they have on them, and I'm like, I don't know if this is actually worth it from a financial perspective.
No, I mean,
it was kind of close, because when I put the student loans in and I backed everything out based on their debt, basically I think I came up with my own formula that most doctors make about $75,000 a year. After that was just my own weird little algorithm that I had put in place, and I was like, I don't know if this is worth it. So you have to enjoy what you do.
You really have to enjoy what you do. And then, like, I think also another thing, because of the training being so long, most doctors are financially illiterate. I mean, they really don't know how to, like, once they start making money, like, how to spend that. And they're so, like, deprived of, like, the things that are kind of normal that people want to buy, or, they want to buy, like, in the future. So so they'll, like, some of the worst investments they'll make is, like, getting a really nice car or a house too big. But then
doctors be balling.
Yeah, but the thing is that's what they want, but it's not, like, financially good decision when you have $700,000 in debt. Damn. Because the thing is, it's
Before
also
you start the profession, you damn near.
Yeah, and when you initially start too, like,
But some of these guys be in their 40s and 50s.
they're still paying off loans.
Paying off loans. That's what I'm saying. So I thought, like, wow, that's a lot. That's a huge debt to incur. And I tell you, I worked at.
Well, I commend it. I mean, if you.
I mean, obviously, if it's
make
something.
that kind of sacrifice.
Shout out to all the doctors.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
obviously,
when you take that kind of time to dedicate your life to others, like, I commend that. So
I commend it as well. I mean, like, I commend you. I'm thankful.
Absolutely.
We thankful you came on the show. And,
Absolutely.
just thankful that you're a doctor, man, because I like money. I couldn't do all that. I mean, that's too much time. Not that y'all don't make no money, but I just can't see me going to school that long. I don't like to study that much either, so that's another problem. Then some people gonna probably be saying you were just lazy. Yeah, so be it. I'm all right. Look, he's the one yawning, though. You see what I'm saying? He the one yawning. But
that's because I work hard. I don't work 36-hour shifts, but I work hard, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do you work hard doing? Let me just get off.
I do a lot of work, man. What you mean?
Okay, never mind. We gonna get back on task.
Thank you.
You're not doing a lot of work. Anyway.
See how y'all was telling me, y'all?
I'm just.
No.
You balling. Boss life, man.
No.
Boss life all day. Just clean show. Clean show today. So if the suicide rate is high, we also talked about the divorce rate. It has to be fairly high. So I'm obviously, if you're working that much, it's kind of hard on a marriage and a family, because the doctors are not there.
Right. Yeah,
So talk a little bit about that.
So I think the divorce rate is slightly higher than the national average. The national average, I think, has actually gone down in the last year. It's around like 50%.
Really? I thought it had been up because everybody was at home and discovering they don't even like this person they were married to. I mean, most people did figure that out. I don't like you as much, because it was cool when you was gone and I was gone. I get to come home and you cooking, or you in your room and I'm over here. I really didn't see you that much. Maybe in the bedroom I saw you, and maybe maybe that was a good time. But now that I got to see you all day, that's what I got from a lot of people. Like,
I
don't
initially
like my
there
wife,
was a
I
lot
don't like
of
my
divorce.
husband. Like, I thought I liked this person, but now that I'm sitting in the house with him, I found I don't like him. That's what
Yeah, I think that was kind of like the initial thing with COVID, but I think when they looked at it as a whole, at least something I saw recently, they said it decreased by like 1%. But like going back to
I can see both sides though.
Yeah, but doctors have like a slightly higher rate, particularly surgeons and like these very time demanding like specialties.
So my next question is, what do you guys do to keep stress off?
To keep stress off? I mean, everyone has their own. Everyone has their own
Come
outlet
on, Doc.
to do.
This is the Cole and Dre show, Doc.
Yeah.
Spill it, Doc.
What do you do?
What do you do, Doc?
Well, he travels.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own outlet. Like I love traveling. I mean, I do a lot of other things like on the side. You have to have a hobby, like photography, like music.
Something.
Play music.
I was learning piano actually.
Really? I should have invited you to our party. We had karaoke. What would you have sung at karaoke? I'm just curious.
Oh, what was on karaoke? I mean, guess Journey, like everyone sings that, right? Don't stop believing. That's the first thing I can think of. That's like the karaoke song, right? But,
I've never done karaoke.
really?
You never done karaoke?
I've never done karaoke.
It's
I
big
want to
here.
do it. I want to
I
do it. I've never
sung,
done karaoke.
yeah, I did. So that was, Travis said it off air. I'm not going to say because we're keeping the show clean.
I don't know what I was singing during karaoke though. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a
man.
good question.
That's a good
you put me on the
question.
spot, so I
Right,
was
that's
like,
a good question. I like
but
rock and roll too.
Everyone does Journey though. If you like go to the bar, that's
Right,
like always a
right.
song.
Sing Unwell, Matchbox 20.
Yeah.
That show you.
What was it? What was the song from Top Gun? Because that was my song.
Oh, Top Gun.
Yeah, the song they sung in the bar. Oh, that's my song. I like that song.
Yeah, everybody sung it.
Yeah, and I can't remember what it was though, but that song. That's what I was saying.
Okay.
The song from Top Gun.
The Top Gun song.
Yeah, the Top Gun song.
Oh, you don't know it either?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So,
It was a good song though.
what's
good
the
moment
most
in the movie.
rewarding thing to you about being a doctor?
I mean, I think it's seeing progress, seeing results.
Right.
I mean, there's no way to describe kind of like, especially at my hospital at Methodist, we see incredibly like complex and very, very, very sick patients. And, to see them the next day, like get better and, this is where like the art of medicine comes in. Like
Right.
And you kind of developed kind of like a keen sense of like when someone is ready to be, ready to go. But then you also have to talk to them and talk to their families.
How do you deal with that? Because that was my next question.
Because that would be the stressful part for me, like having to talk to somebody's family.
You've been talking to this person, and
Yeah.
they're sitting here, and they're pretty much gonna die, and
Damn.
That's very tough.
so so how is
No
that
filter.
for some people that like they and you can tell them, but they say I don't believe, and maybe some of them come out, but I'd probably be one of those people. Man, I ain't finna die.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get with you tomorrow.
Well, I think the education part's incredibly important. So
Right.
one thing I try to do, and I think it works well with my patients, is I never use big words. Like I never use doctor jargon. I try to explain everything in a way that like they understand it.
Right.
Because I've noticed that like if the patients understand it and they can recite back to you what you've said is going on, not only do they appreciate like their care like much more, but then they're also more compliant. Like they'll actually heed your recommendations and things like that.
Right.
I mean, something like death though, like end of life, especially COVID, is
Say
very
end of life. You don't say death.
well. I'm just saying someone who's about to pass away and things like that. It's really tough, particularly in the situation of COVID, because when you can't it's a very highly infectious disease, right? So
Right.
these people are dying alone, like they're dying. Their family. It's so devastating for the families because
can't see it.
they can't see the loved one like during that time, and then basically they have these cameras, and I mean that's not the same as like
Definitely not the same.
being next to someone, but also just being able to talk to someone and their family and explain to them like when someone has not much time left. That's also it's very challenging because everyone responds differently, like in terms of families, and you just have to be mindful and sensitive to like whatever.
And where you work at, I'm sure that happens a lot based on where you work at. The hospital, you should,
Yeah.
I can only
I gotta
imagine.
ask this question.
Here we go.
No,
Do you gotta ask this question or do you want to ask this question?
Well,
Because there's just a huge difference.
no, I gotta ask it because I'm very curious, and you don't have to answer it.
Brace yourself, Doc.
totally, but
Brace yourself.
do black people react different than other cultures when you telling them they love us? I just want to know.
No, I mean
Sorrow is sorrow, I think. I think,
No,
I
that's
think pain is
that's
just
not a
pain.
bad question. I mean, to be honest, like, and that's why, to be honest, in terms of cultural sensitivity, like, it's incredibly important. Like, I love traveling, right? Like, so
Right.
I've been to 66 countries. I've been to all the states, and I think it's given me like this worldview of like being able to be a little bit flexible in terms of understanding. So the way that you would communicate, to someone who's African American versus someone who's, like Mexican, Spanish, like you have to take into account like some of the cultural beliefs, and that does really. For example, I have a lot of patients who are Jehovah's Witness, and they can't take blood products, right? So they'll come in with like a blood count.
A Jehovah's Witness can't take blood.
They don't get like blood transfusion stuff. So they could literally like they're on the verge of death. Their hemoglobin is like 3, which is like incredibly low, but they still refuse blood because that's a religious belief, and it's very frustrating. But like you could easily that person, if they took blood, they would probably be out of the hospital in a day or two, but because they have to do it, by their religious context. I've had people who are literally in the hospital for like a month to get their numbers up but they could also at the same time die. It's kind of.
I've never heard of that, but
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor either. Did you know that?
I'm not a Jehovah's Witness.
So,
No.
hey,
I
I
mean-
say I'm not a doctor. He's somebody.
I'm just saying. You hadn't done know that, no. Was that the answer you look for? No. No, I didn't know that.
That was okay.
But I mean, I'm not.
So, are there any other religious things that
Yeah, I mean,
hinder you in medicine? I'm gonna say hinder just.
Well, I guess that is a hindrance if you can't give somebody what they need at the
It's
moment because
I
of what
mean-
they believe. I guess it
But
it stopped the process of healing. So yes, it does hinder versus quickly.
I know I'm trying to be religiously sensitive
I mean,
and understanding, so I don't want to say it hinders you from. Yeah, that hinder you. Go ahead. What is
I mean,
anything- yeah, that,
yeah.
just-
So this is kind of interesting, actually. So they did this like survey last year where they asked people what they would want to do at the end of their life, like as they, if
What?
they have like cancers or anything else. So they asked a group of doctors, what would they choose? And there's something called code status. So code status is once you get to the hospital, if your heart were to stop or you stop breathing, do you want us to do everything like CPR, intubate you, put you on life support, that sort of thing. So interestingly, I think 97% of doctors said that they would be DNR.
I
which
would
is
be
DNR
DNR.
percent.
I would
And-
definitely do a DNR. Go ahead.
And so, speaking to like the cultural, religious type of thing, like as far as like DNR, a lot of
Do not
people,
resuscitate.
yeah. So they associate DNR with like do not resuscitate with do not treat, which is completely untrue. So all that means is only in that situation where if you're, God forbid, that sick, they wouldn't do anything.
Right.
But that makes it very challenging because you have to explain things, and plus it's an emotional time when someone's loved one's sick, right? So, you have to be able to say things clearly and like kind of understand like why. So a lot of people, they have a deep religious belief, even though there's like 0% chance that their loved one's going to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened in this particular situation with that COVID patient. I mean, honestly, we kept him alive. We have the technology now to keep people alive, like, but there's no quality of life. And so the reason I think doctors, overwhelmingly say DNR is because we see like the healthcare costs that go associated with it. Like usually like the last year of life, they say that in Medicare, like 80% of your total expenditures usually happen in terms of healthcare in the last year of life. So there's 80%. Yeah. So there are a ton of like resources like essentially that are being wasted. And, we keep people artificially alive, and not let nature take its course, which, again, you have to be kind of mindful.
You
and
definitely got to
sensitive
be
to these
mindful of
things.
that.
Yeah, I think like for me, I do a DNR because I haven't seen anybody be deaf, and I tell people like I joke, but I'm telling the truth at the same time. I don't always vote, but the first politician that tells me he has figured out a solution for deaf, I'm voting for him.
Oh my God.
I'm like, that's the guy. I don't care what his other beliefs are. I can deal with him.
Well, that's not gonna happen.
Would you freeze yourself? Like cryo?
Uh-oh.
That's something that.
Is that really happening?
Yeah,
I mean,
people
there
doing it, yeah.
are people that are
What
actually.
movie was that? Demolition Man years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that. I think when it's over, it's over. So I don't know. Let's think about it. The movie The Green
So hold
Mile.
on.
Think about
Stop.
it. Go ahead.
They freezing. They said before they die, what they doing?
Yeah. So basically,
Yeah.
because
No.
even when they have like a certain disease, right? They're about to die, right? So instead of euthanasia, so euthanasia's basically physician assisted suicide, right? So like you give someone like a lethal injection or something like that. It's illegal in most states, but essentially, kind of when someone becomes comfort care, that's essentially what's happening. You're kind of giving them the medicines to kind of suppress their respiratory drive, and they pass away peacefully. So as far as like I guess I lost my train of thought.
About the about people freezing themselves.
Oh, freeze themselves. Oh, yeah.
Cryo,
So,
what is it called? Cryo?
yeah. So what they do is they'll freeze themselves before they actually die,
Right.
and it's for the purpose of in the future when there's some sort of technology breakthrough available, they unfreeze themselves.
Freeze me now.
Yeah,
Do
but
I
the thing
age?
is that no one knows. Like, so
Will I age?
yeah, there's I think in like Nevada and like I think there's like this huge. That's where the most people do it, and there's some celebrities that do it and things like that. They want to preserve themselves, So, but you're kind of like choosing not to live, essentially.
Right.
But how much does that cost? Like,
Oh, it's incredibly. I think for that procedure, each one is like 150,000, something like
Has
that.
anybody come back from it though? Like, has
That's the
Nobody's
thing. I
come
mean,
back yet,
so that's
no.
the thing. We're in the phase of like we don't know much about it. So yeah, no one's really.
Well,
come
because we
back
might
from
have had
it.
the technology. What if somebody died of COVID years ago? Now we got vaccinations. You can just kind of.
so let me think about this. Think about it. So you
Yeah.
die in 2021 and you come back in 2201.
Do your body age. If you froze, you probably don't age.
But why would you even want to come back?
It's like putting some meat in the freezer.
I mean, think about it. So would you want to come back?
I don't know.
I mean, you don't know
Okay,
nobody.
but basically what they're saying is like if
You don't know nobody.
If something's happening today and they might not have a cure for it today, but if I freeze myself in 20 years down the line, they may have a cure for this now. They just like thaw me out and hook me up like.
But that's the thing. If you, how do you know? I think like
I mean, because
there's a lot of stuff to think about, right?
Right,
So
right,
obviously, like you don't know when
I'm
that's
gonna
gonna
waste my
happen.
$150,000 on that one.
Yeah,
I
you
don't know
don't
about
know
that
if,
one.
like
What about you? You gonna waste your $150,000 on that?
I don't. That's
Let's
no.
go, boss. Let's hear it.
No, I'm not gonna do that. I
Okay.
mean, it's just
You don't want to be around 100 years from now?
death is a change agent to me. I think
it's
it's out
promise.
with the old and in with the new, and I think that
Damn, say that again?
it's out with the old and in with the new, and I think you got to look at it from a standpoint that
Out with the old.
let's take
with the
let's
new.
take a
Damn,
look at
that's
kings and queens and all of these people
That's
that
tough.
have held all of the wealth in the world at one period of time. They had to pass on so other people can enjoy life. And so if you have people that can afford to live longer, then the likelihood of social mobility goes down drastically because the wealthier people are going to consistently control everything and not pass anything down. So I don't think that's fair to humankind. So that's probably my take on that. So I can only imagine you thaw me out and bring me back 100 years from now. And, now y'all got all this new technology, people flying around. They probably don't even need a car. They probably just flying. Superman.
like the
We
Jetsons.
probably closer than that. than we
so,
think, though.
but
Because Elon is doing his thing right
Yeah,
now.
Elon.
yeah, but I
Elon
mean,
doing
so
his
but
thing
now, I don't know. How does my will work? When I come back, I get everything. I'm gonna freeze myself, and in 50 years,
so
if
do
I
you
ain't
get a
came
death
back, then
Do you get a death certificate? No, that's
Because
right. You're not dead.
You're not dead.
So
technically.
nobody get the money. It's still on ice.
It's on freeze. Yeah.
It's so nice.
yeah, that's unfair to humankind.
And
That's
what's sad is
unfair.
like if they can't, we don't have the technology by that time. I mean, that's the thing with like medical innovation. Like sometimes it takes. I mean, we've had a lot in the last couple of years, but who knows if that's possible. I frankly don't think it's viable because like, whenever you freeze someone, you're also, it's for preservation, but you're also killing tissue.
Right.
So I mean, scientifically, to me personally, I don't think it's something that's gonna like really be practical. There are people that they want to, they have all these like, bomb shelters and things like that in New Zealand. Like that's where like a lot of these celebrities are buying houses. Like they just want to live as long as possible in the case we have like a world war or something like that. But
We're going to New Zealand
yeah, go to New Zealand
and freeze ourselves.
and freeze yourself.
Hey, man, I'm gonna die right here. I'm alright with it.
Hey man, this has been a great show today, man.
Hold on, before anything, is there anything else you want to say on the medical profession? Is there anything new that we should know about that's coming, that's not here yet? I guess that would mean it's coming, but is there anything that you're seeing that's a new trend?
I would say like for sure. I mean, one thing, at least having this platform, like I would say it's definitely worth getting vaccinated.
Okay.
Was
that directed at me, Doc?
No.
Absolutely. Look, I saw. Hey,
Giving the
you
eyes.
see what he did? I definitely say it's worth getting
No,
vaccinated.
and my stance on vaccination, like I said, I'm not against getting vaccinated. Like I said, for me,
You're just doing the research.
I'm just not a sickly guy. Like what I'm saying, I rarely get sick. I've never taken a flu shot.
I've had people who are 35 with no medical history whatsoever.
Right.
Who are like, there's actually someone at our hospital that like, I think they were like 38 or something, who had a stroke from COVID.
Wow.
And passed away. I mean,
Wow.
It was crazy. I mean,
Should have got froze.
like no medical issue. This person was like skinny. I mean, they were healthy.
Right.
Like, yeah. I mean, actually, my very first patient I had last year before the vaccine and everything, it was actually someone who was like a martial arts person, and they got COVID and they were on oxygen. So it's like a bad illness. I mean,
Right.
it
I
affects
don't,
like
I don't want to
everything.
be that person to get that shot in my knee. My legs don't
Yeah.
work no more, and I can't do
Yeah.
some things.
And that's the
gonna be
thing.
tough.
Did she pass away?
No,
No, she's actually doing better. She's
Okay,
you're
she's
both
not
treated.
paralyzed anymore.
No, she's
Okay,
actually.
well
able
wishes
to-
to her to get better, Mom.
Yeah. So she went to like Tier, which is like a rehab place, and then she's kind of back on her feet. So she was.
See, I ain't got time for all that, Doc. I
Yeah.
can't be letting them shoot me up and then give me those.
Okay, so
I
I got one.
so I guess I'm fine. Y'all good, so I guess I might be.
Yeah, I'm
cool.
good. You, yeah, we not. Hopefully, you're not gonna get us
66%,
sick.
right?
We're okay with it. So we're gonna wrap up. I gotta throw this in right.
Here
so,
we go.
No. Y'all
Doc,
know I'm gonna
brace
throw it
yourself,
out.
Doc.
But
brace yourself, Doc.
no, you
Here
ain't
we
gotta
go.
brace yourself. So,
It's that time in the show where he
I
says something
was-
he's supposed to be saying.
but it's clean. And we have not said one curse word,
No.
one N word. I am so proud of Dre. Y'all give it up for Dre. Man. Y'all give it up for Dre. Hey, we
clapping for that.
good, man. So listen, I was in Vegas. True story. No joke. I was in Vegas and this guy was, losing a ton of money, playing baccarat, and I was kind of like, I'm sitting there with some guys. Okay, I'm sitting there with some guys. Because they might not even want to be associated on this one, but I'm sitting there with some of the homies, and I'm like, man, dude, done lost like $2 million. What do you do? Like, who is this dude? Like, I don't know. I can't lose $2 million and just be as happy as he was. So I was like, what do you do? And he was like, he the dick doctor. And I was like, what that mean?
Urologist.
Is that what it's called? A urologist?
I thought you were gonna say Dr. Fauci or something else. Was losing too.
No. So he's a urologist.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got to talking to the guy, and he was telling me how every man has like 1.5 inches or 2 inches, and he goes in and he cuts it out. And, he was saying that he was booked up for like 18 months. And I was like, wow. And he was telling me about the procedure. We just sitting there. No joke. I'm serious. I'm very serious. So he's telling me about, because I'm
So
like,
you're in agreement this could be possibly a true story?
I mean,
no, hold on.
I'm hearing him out. Let's see.
Okay, let's see. That's ought to be good.
So he was
Punchline.
and he was telling me how a lot of his clients were celebrities. That's why I didn't want to say who was exactly there, because I don't think he was a client, but I don't know. He was telling me he had a lot of celebrity clients and high net worth clients, and he said people paid a lot extra for him to set up at their homes to keep confidentiality. And so obviously I know it's got to be some truth to this.
I mean, it's possible, right? But like at the same time, is it something that's done very often? No.
So boys can't just be adding inches just cause.
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't do it because he told me one of the side effects was you might have nerve damage
you
and
might
it never
have-
work
yeah,
again.
exactly, 'cause-
So
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
wow, who would do that?
It's
He-
a very
and he said, I'm
complicated-
very good.
yeah, it's a very complicated procedure.
He must be doing something good because he's losing $2 million at the table. So hey,
Man lost $2 million at the table. I
he tough.
Yeah.
can't think of his name because I.
Oh, you're not gonna say his name. We don't
No,
say
I would
his
say his name. I don't remember. I don't
Yeah, we
remember
won't
the
say his
dude's
name.
name. I haven't talked. That's been like 12 years ago.
He
That
out
was
there
a-
blessing boys.
Yeah. So the reason I brought it up is so he's a doctor from a financial spectrum, from a financial stance. I think. I don't think he really cared as much about his patients. So just.
Well, he just
that's why I
said
was
that
saying I
most.
commend
I mean,
you.
you can make money and still care about your patients, right?
Right.
Like, it,
Yeah, I'm
it,
sure he
it
don't
really
want him
depends on your
falling off.
situation.
They got nerve damage. It's gonna kind of kill
Yeah.
the business. Hey,
But there's
man,
a
look what he did.
huge, in terms of medicine, like in terms of compensation, so pediatrics, they make kind of the least amount. I think PAs actually get paid more than pediatricians, like across the country.
Really?
Very interestingly,
Well,
yeah.
because the kids that go, huh?
So, you have the spectrum of that, and all the way to like, orthopedic surgeons, and they're the highest paying specialty, I believe, like orthopedic surgery and like neurosurgery.
How long do you go to school to be a neurosurgeon?
So to be a neurosurgeon, it's kind of crazy. I think they have 7 years of additional training after medical school. So
Damn.
that's
How long
4
is
years.
medical school?
4 years to college, 4 years of med school, and then 7 years. And then some people even specialize after that. So that's what, like
Man,
15 years.
15 years. That ain't worth it. I mean, like, well, you know what? Let me.
Well, don't say
It
that.
is
'Cause it is worth
yeah,
it.
It is worth it.
Because I'm not going for 15 years, so I need them to work on me if I need them.
Well,
Yeah,
you guys-
I need them
that's
to
why I
work for
said
me.
it is worth
It's
it.
definitely
Do you
worth
see
it.
Dr. Death? Like
Dr. Death? Who?
Yeah.
There's somebody
so-
named Dr. Death?
Yeah. So
That's not
there's,
in the comic book?
there's a neurosurgeon. No, this is a
No,
guy.
no, this is the guy in Detroit, right?
It's from Dallas, actually.
In Dallas.
Got a
Okay.
Dr.
So-
Death in Dallas.
Yeah, so there's this neurosurgeon who was like botching all these surgeries because they like let him through, without really like testing him, and so he's now in jail.
What do you
I gotta
mean
look
they let
this
him
up.
through? He had a hookup on his
So,
test.
so he was an MD PhD guy. So like basically he even did like 7 years of med school, And like after that, you know, he went into 4 years of med school. I mean, 7 years of 7 years of med school, and then after that he did residency for 7 more years. And so during that time he did more research than he did operating, and he didn't meet like the minimum requirement essentially. And so he was able to I guess graduate from there, but when he was doing all these surgeries he had no idea what he was doing. He was incompetent. And I think he like maimed like, I don't know, it was like 30 some patients. It's kind of crazy.
That is terrible.
It's awful, yeah.
Dr.
That's why you want your doctor to be trained well, because, you know.
So last question before we wrap up. Actually, this is not clickbait, but we're gonna leave. I'm gonna put in Dr. Death in your picture, and then we'll come back and they'll know it ain't you because I just told them. But at least it should.
Yeah, we interviewed Dr. Death today. No,
not this. Not the real Dr.
Right, he's locked up.
He's locked
Yeah,
up.
he locked up.
We should put his picture up. So for a doctor, because you guys are hard on each other, how do you assess who's going to be your doctor?
As far as like myself?
Yeah, how would you
your
assess?
personal physician.
I want to know how, because I
need a personal physician myself.
Like
now.
a doctor. So how do I do it?
You've heard that doctors are like the worst patients, right? Like in general.
Why is that?
It's because like we wait too long sometimes, like to do the routine things that we probably tell our patients to do. Sadly, I probably shouldn't say that, but like honestly, we're just so busy sometimes, like taking care of other people,
right,
that we kind of neglect ourselves. But in terms of answering a question about what to look for, I mean, I think the most important thing is someone that you're able to talk to and like interact with and understand. Right. The more you understand,
you know, Dr. Death was probably cool.
Yeah.
Until you go for a colon and get brain surgery.
I mean, he was so. I think he might have been like, he was very like arrogant though. Like he was very like, you know, I'll fix this, and I'm like, you know, you want to make sure that like you go to someone who's like. I think in Methodist, one thing I work amongst like some of the best doctors in the world, right, mm-hmm, and one thing I love about the hospital is, and it's a top 15 hospital. We just got ranked number 16, so it's like Harvard and then Methodist.
Right.
And so the hospital I work at, like the thing I love about it is that there's some brilliant people, but they're just so humble, okay, and like down to earth, and like they'll spend time, like the surgeons will spend like an hour or two with the patient and explain everything. I don't know many other places that do that, especially in like the big, you know.
Is this the only hospital you ever worked at, or this is?
I mean, I've worked in like different hospitals during my training. Like,
okay,
you know, when I was training in med school, I worked at 5 different hospitals, including like a VA.
Okay.
But
what did you think about the VA?
The VA, it's like a world of its own. Like, it's the only place that has a universal EMR, which is the electronic medical record, which is great. I mean, that would be fantastic if we had an electronic medical record that, you know, you can use uniformly across the country. But, you know, every hospital has a different system. So, you know, in terms of any records you have, you kind of have to reinvent the wheel sometimes and start from scratch.
Right.
So you're basing like your initial treatment based on what the patient's saying.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the tricky part of being a hospitalist is I see these people, you know, and I'm kind of going by what they say.
Right.
And you know, most of the time there's continuity, but like if they're there for the first time, you have to give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes, you know. But the most important thing is just making sure they're safe.
All right, before we wrap up, I got to ask you this question, and we're going to be done. This is the last question.
Third before we wrap up question, though. So.
Is it the third?
This the third before we
I mean, you know, because, like, when you're talking to a doctor...
might got brain surgery, something to go do. You don't know. Like,
he got brain surgery? He had brain surgery?
We don't know, but I'm saying he might got some things to do. We just holding him up.
Okay, well, this is... Now you done made me forget my question.
It's the last question.
I done forgot the question. You know what? Dre just threw off a great question that I had a great question, and he just threw it off. Y'all got to work with Dre.
Doc just said he ain't got that much free time. This is off day. He trying to
I mean, we're going to let him go, man. But I had a great question, and you cheating our audience out of a great question that I had to ask.
Let's go, co-host.
In closing, man, Doc, you have anything else before you go?
No. I mean,
you sure?
Yeah, I mean, nothing.
Positive?
Yeah.
All right. So, man, we've enjoyed, Doc. Hopefully you guys got some good medical advice and got some things out of this. Dre cheated you guys out of probably one of the greatest questions of all time. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, that's that. So this concludes our episode for today. I'm Cole.
And this is Dre.
And we the Cole and Dre Show. We out.
Peace.
Hey, man, hey. Relentless. Hey. 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 Hey, Cole. Boss straight. 2 mother watch them out. No count. All facts like what you talking about. Boy, listen and pay attention to what we talking about. We can show you how to make 100,000 in the drop. These niggas fraud, but I'm already used to that. Big boss man ain't coming out unless they sign a check. Travis, what's up? Nothing chillin'. You know the Houston way. If it ain't about money, nigga, we ain't finna conversate.